Chapter 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga, Unitive Action and Renunciation. Karma means action. Karma Yoga is unitive action. Sannyasa is renunciation. This chapter follows the earlier chapters dealing with unitive way of action, which is Karma Yoga, and unitive wisdom, which is Jnana Yoga. So after Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, Vyasa in this chapter reconciles two more basic concepts, those of action and renunciation. These are ancient values which evolved on the soil of the subcontinent from very ancient times. The call of action, which is the motivating factor in everybody's life, nobody can avoid action, but that action is to be made unitive or made into a yoga. Unitive action frees the actor. Non-unitive action binds the doer. Sannyasa, on the other hand, does not resort to action but to knowledge. So the orthodox sannyasi's spiritual discipline did not include action but relied on renunciation, giving up of all activity. But as we know, the Bhagavad Gita revalues these concepts, correcting them, and gives a unique vision of its own. The chapter begins with Arjuna's question. Karma, or action, is to be taken here in the sense of adhering to active disciplines, either of the yoga system or of ritualism. It does not refer to gross actions, but only to actions which have some discipline orientation. Verse 1. Arjuna uvacha sannyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha samshasi yat shreya etayor ekam tanme bruhi sunischitam. Arjuna said, you recommend the effective transcending of action, sannyasam karmanam, O Krishna, and again yoga also. Tell me duly determined, sunischitam, with finality, once and for all, which of these two is spiritually better? There is a complex relation between action and inaction. The transcending of action, which is the path of sannyasa, and yoga, which means performing action. Yogis are performers of action. So which of these two paths is superior in a spiritual sense? Verse 2. Bhagavan uvacha sannyasah karma yogascha nihasreyaskaravubhau tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo visishyate. Krishna said, both renunciation and unitive action have emancipation as their common effect. Of the two, however, unitive action, karma yoga, is superior to mere renunciation of action. So Gita does not advocate action, nor does it recommend quietism, but helps to find a via media. As we have mentioned many times before, the Gita avoids any extremity or any extreme form of discipline and always corrects one with the other to arrive at a balance. or via media. So the common goal, the effect is the same. Either the path of karma yoga, unitive action, or the path of sannyasa, both have a common effect. But man being a biological animal, very much associated with his mind and body complex, also because he lives with other human beings, so it is better for him to perform unitive action, karma yoga. Renunciation always has many dangers. Dangers that a man may become a misfit, or a man is unable to meet his physical demands, or a person may enter into negativity or into some sort of vacuum which are not conducive to his spiritual development. And therefore the path of unitive action or karma yoga is definitely recommended by Sri Krishna. Verse 3. Nyeyah sa nitya sannyasi yo na dveshti na kankshati nirdvando hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. That man should be recognized as a perennial renouncer who neither hates nor desires, free indeed from conflicting pairs of interests, O mighty armed. He is happily released from the bondage of necessity. Here it is not the outer appearance which matters, whether a person is shaven or the types of clothes he wears or the symbols he is associated with, but the inner attitude which counts. There is neither any cruel form of asceticism. There is a cheerfulness which is a spiritual quality, a lightness which is a sign of a spiritual person. The signs by which a renouncer, sannyasi, is recognized is that such a person has no hatred and no desires. It's not the outer marks or habits, as we have said, but his inner attitude of the absence of hatred, the absence of desires. For these two, hatred and desires, they generate conflict in a person. And when there is a conflict, a person cannot experience peace or joy or right understanding. So the sign of a renouncer or a renunciate or a sannyasi is this freedom from conflict and freedom from the passionate hatred and passionate attraction, dvesha or akanksha, intense longing for anything. He does not long for anything intensely, neither does he reject anybody or anything. And by using the word sukham pramuchyate, he is happily released. That shows that there is no cruel form of asceticism. There is no torture of the body or the organs or people associated with him. So this is the nature of a person who renounces, the renunciate. Verse 4. Sankhya yogau prithak balaha pravadanti na panditaha ekam api asthitah samyag ubhayor vindate phalam. That rationalism and self-discipline are distinct, only children say, not the well-informed. One well-established in either one of them obtains the result of both. It is only an immature mind or an unfinished intellect, person without deep understanding, who thinks of the Sankhya way or the rationalist way and the way of self-discipline as distinct. But the Pandita here is the well-informed, the learned. They realize if a person is established either on the path of reason or on the path of self-discipline, either of them will come to the same goal or will attain the same result. They will obtain the result of both. Yat samkhyaihi prapyate sthanam tad yogair api gamyate ekam sankhyam cha yogam cha yah pashyati sa pashyati. So wisdom and action in this verse are being treated at par. And he says that status attained by men of Sankhya, that means the rationalists, is reached also by those of yoga, or those who practice self-discipline. And so he who sees Sankhya and yoga as one, he alone sees. So with these verses, the author of the Gita is reconciling age-old doubts and conflicts and polemics between people who preferred the way of reasoning and people of more active temperament who preferred the way of self-discipline. That both will eventually come to have the same benefits. Verse 6. Sanyasastu mahabaho dukkham aptum ayogatah yoga yukto munir brahma na chirenadhigacchati. But non-unitive renunciation, O mighty armed, is full of pain to achieve. One unitively harmonized, of subdued ways, without any delay, attains the Absolute. So there are antique forms of renunciation of the old orthodox ways, full of harsh taboos, do's and don'ts, full of self-denials, bans, austerities, and these are full of pain. They are painful to achieve. But by infusing the yogic attitude into one's spiritual discipline, all these painful ways of outmoded renunciation is given up, and a more humane and a more middle way of self-discipline is practiced. And this is the way that the Gita recommends. The Gita, as we have said, often avoids the two extremes of orthodoxy or heterodoxy and shows a very sensible, revalued vision which is uniquely its own. Verse number 7. Yoga yukto vishuddha atma vijitatma jitendriyah sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan api na lipyate. Now the teachings are given a psychological subjective turn. One affiliated to the unitive way of life, yoga yukta, one who has been united with yoga, attained to lucidity of self, vishuddha atma, whose self has become pure, clear, of self-conquest, vijitatma, one who has won over the self, jitendriyah, one who has gained victory over the senses, sarva bhutatma bhutatma, whose self-existence has become the same as the self-existence of all, who begins to see the same principle operating in all, though acting is thereby unaffected. So such a person who has advanced on the path of yoga, who has become affiliated to the unitive way, who has gained the lucidity of one's own self, who has gained conquest over oneself and victory over the senses, such a person's work, actions, activities, here we must remember karma is spoken of in the self-disciplines and the ritualistic context. Then he attains to a harmonized state, and that though he is active, he will not be affected. So this means that the self, the Atman, has a movement in an axis independent of the plane of everyday activities. There is an everyday activities, the plane of transactional activities, vyavahara, but the self, the movement of that self is on a different axis. It's a different plane, and that is independent. It is not affected by the transactional activities of everyday life. Verse 8, Nai eva kimchit karomiti yukto manyeti tattvavit pashyan shrinvan sprushan jighan anasnan gachan swapan swashan. I do nothing at all. Saying thus, he of unitive ways, who is a philosopher, should think while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going, sleeping, breathing. Verse 9. Pralapan vishrajan grahnan unmishan nimishan api indriyani indriyartheshu vartanta iti dharayan. Speaking, excreting, grasping, opening and closing the eyes, treating the senses as merely related to their corresponding sense objects. So these verses 8 and 9, they can go together. And this refers to automatic reflex functions, which is incidental to our physical existence. Our physical existence is where we perform such activities, such as seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going, sleeping, breathing, speaking. So this is considered as the biological aspect of us. But when a person says that I do nothing at all, he is considering his self, the Atman in him. Atman does not perform any action. So when he begins to understand that these are all biological reflex actions happening, and he is the unmoved mover or the non-acting self. Brahmanya adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yah lipyate sanapapena padma patram ivambhasa. He who acts, placing all actions in the Absolute, having given up attachment, is not affected by sin, like a lotus leaf by water. This is a graphic descriptive verse in which the lotus which grows in the water, the leaf has a coating on it, and that prevents the leaf from getting wet. So even though it is touching water all the time, even though water is falling on the leaf is never wet. Similarly, the yogi, the person of unitive understanding, the person of unitive discipline, the person of reasoning, that person also performs action. He is always in the world of actions, surrounded by activity all the time, like the lotus surrounded by water all the time. He is participating in the action, but at the same time, he is not affected by it. He is not affected by any sin. Again, as we have said, there are two distinct planes. All actions belong to the biological level only, and the self, that is transcendent. So when the person places all actions in the Absolute, Brahmani, Adhaya, that means the root of all these actions, that is in the Absolute. He says, I am not the actor, I am not the one who is doing it, it is all coming from the Absolute. So he transcends the doership of the action. Any action that we perform, we have the sense of doing. I do, I enjoy, I know. So this sense of ownership, sense of agency, this is an egoistic sense. Because of the ego, we feel that we are doing, we are the actor. And that is the ajnani, the person who does not know the truth. Such a person thinks like this. But the yogi, because of his wisdom, because of his knowledge, because of his understanding. He knows that it is the self which is acting, and so he places all the actions on the self. And by this, he gets freed of all sins. He can let go of all the affections, affectivity, just like the lotus leaf in the water, not affected by any of the activities. Number 11. Kayena manasa buddhaya kevalairindriyairapi yoginah karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhayah. Now the Gita is a great spiritual text because of its open-mindedness, because of its middle-of-the-path attitude. It does not take any extremes. It permits a lot of freedom. And here the Gita permits the freedom of the senses also. So it is not asceticism. The ascetic who is very strict, who does not allow his senses to be motivated or provoked. But here the Gita allows even the senses to be used to raise one's consciousness. Anything beautiful, anything good, pleasant, anything with quality, even those things can help to raise his consciousness. We must remember here this is karma sannyasa yoga. The karma yoga spoken here is only karma that deals with self-discipline and rituals. It's not dealing with gross karma, the harsh karma that we see in the world. It's not that karma, but that karma which a person uses for his self-discipline. So by the body, that is kayena, manasa, by the mind, buddhaya, by the intelligence, and indriyair also, by the senses also, the yogis engage in action, abandoning attachment for purposes of purity of self. Tyaktva sangam, this is the important point here. Tyaktva sangam, that means abandoning the attachment. Sangha means attachment, and this attachment is the root cause of man's bondage. Then we come to number 12. Yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva shantim apnoti naishtikim ayuktaha kamakarena phale shakto nibadhyate. So there is no repression in the Gita. Gita does not ask people to repress or suppress, but to sublimate, to transcend, to make everything in life of better quality, raising oneself. So here in the 12th verse, the one of unitive discipline, discarding benefit motive, attains to ultimate peace. The one of non-unitive discipline, being desire motivated, attached to results, is bound. So the willful or conscious attachment to ends is what distinguishes the non-yogic attitude. One is the yuktaha and the other is the ayuktaha. Yuktaha means one who has proper yukti, proper discipline. Ayukta means non-unitive, one person who is not properly connected with his discipline. He becomes ayukta. So in ayukta person, kama karena, there is a kama, there is a desire for the phala, for the result. Person is motivated very strongly for the result, and that makes that person bound to that activity. Whereas the other person has discarded tyaktva karma phalam. He doesn't worry about the result because he is disciplined person. He performs his action with proper discipline, and that leads to a proper result automatically. So that is called naishtikim shanti. So he gets peace. He is a peaceful person. But the ayukta person, because of the attachment to result, he becomes bound. So these are two important distinctions here, the non-yogic and the yogic attitude. Then 13, sarva karmani manasa sanyasta aste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi nayeva kurvan nakarayam. So the absolute, when we talk of absolute, when we talk of self, when we talk of Atman, the important characteristic there is neutrality. It doesn't have any polarity in the absolute. It has perfect neutrality. So, sarva karmani manasa, by the means of the mind, relinquishing all activities. The embodied one, that is dehi. Deha means this body. Asate means the one who is dwelling in this body, that is the self. One sits happily a victor in the nine-gated city, neither acting nor causing to act. Nine-gated city is this body, because Navadware, we have 9 openings, 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, 2 ears, etc. So you count all these openings of the body, there are 9. So this body is sometimes called the nine-gated city. And who is seated in this nine-gate city? It is the self. So when the yogic attitude has come and all activities are being relinquished by the mind, so then the person begins to sit happily in the body itself. The self experiences great happiness, neither acting nor causing to act. So that neutral balance is maintained by a person. When you say he neither acting nor causing to act, he lets nature take its course. What happens naturally begins to take its course, does not interfere. So he is not moved by events, neither does he move the events, but he allows the natural course of events to take place and becomes a serene person. This is the Advaita position, the position of the transcendental person, or the person of harmonized mind, or the yogi, or the sannyasi. Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijate prabhuhu na karma phala samyogam svabhavastu pravavartate. The Supreme Prabhuhu, or the Lord, he does not generate either the idea of agency or activity. Kartritvam, that means I am the doer, sense of agency, or karmani. Karmani means activity. He does not generate the agency of activity, nor the union of the action and benefit. The innate urge in beings, however, exerts itself. It is an urge, swabhava, from the nature. The swabhava of people is such that it exerts itself. And that swabhava in people is acting. And when it acts, people take on the idea of agency and take on the idea of activity in regard to the world. And then the union of action and benefit comes in. When the man thinks of the benefit, thinks of the action, then he gets caught in many complicated situations. But that is not the Supreme's doing. So Supreme did not create all this. Prabhu did not make this. But it is the swabhava coming from the innate urge in beings. So there is no reward or punishment, as religious people like to scare people that God will punish you or God will reward you. In the Gita clearly says that God is not going to reward or God does not punish. That is swabhava, people's nature. When a person has a certain nature, he can get a reward. If he disobeys certain laws, natural laws, then he will find he gets into trouble because of the actions of the person. When a person does not work with wisdom, then there is a problem. When a person works with a proper discipline, then that person gets a reward. So God has nothing to do with it. Na datte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyati jantavaha. The all-pervading one takes cognizance neither of the sinful nor of the meritorious actions of anyone. Vibhuhu. First he said Prabhuhu, now he says Vibhuhu, does not take cognizance of na adattete papam, either of the sin or the sukritam. Sukrita. Sukritam is good actions. So God is not taking accounts there of people who are doing good things. Neither is he making a list of somebody who is doing a bad thing. In the eyes of God, this good and bad has not much value. It is jnana and agyan that matters. Because of agyan, a person's jnana is blocked. And because of his agyan, he becomes a mudha, he becomes deluded. So again, as we said, no God who rewards or punishes. So again, this is the beauty of the Gita. It takes you above these closed and narrow ways of approaching God. The childish, immature, especially the religious way, is to think that God is giving you something or taking something away. Nothing like that. Jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham nasitam atmanah tesham aditva jnanam prakashayati tatparam. To those, however, in whom that unwisdom in the self has been destroyed. What do you want the nash of? Nash should be of agyan. When that agyan is gone, then there is the triumph of wisdom. Jnanam prakashayat. Wisdom shines, sunlight, tat param, that is the ultimate, the absolute. So this wisdom which is sunlight which is the absolute, coming from the absolute. And that will come into a person's life when the agyan goes away. Tad buddhayas tadatmanas tannishthas tatparayanah gacchantya apunaravrittim jnana nirduta kalmashaha. Having that for reasoning, tat means always the absolute. Tat atmanah, that for the self. Tat nishtha, that for the finalized discipline. Tat parayanah, that for the supreme goal. Gachanti, they go apunar avrittim, to a state of final non-return. We say moksha shastra. Moksha shastra always talks of no return. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. That is the relativistic world. In the world of life and death, cyclic comings and goings, which even Swarga cannot save you, but that when you fix your mind on Tat Parayana, Tat Nishtha, you have that for finalized, Tat Atmanah, Tat Buddhaya, meaning you become absolutist, you become a person wanting to know the absolute, wanting to know Brahman. Jnana Nirdhuta Kalmashaha. And when the jnana comes, Kalmasha means dross, all that which is impure, that becomes burnt away, that goes away. Everything that is wrong in a person's life is just immediately struck off, cancelled out when the light of wisdom comes. It's an instant thing. It's not any gradation or anything. It's like in a dark room, when the light is switched on, darkness just vanishes. Darkness does not go out slowly. As soon as the light is switched on, all the darkness is removed. Similarly, when the light of wisdom comes in a person, all the agyan, all the relativistic dross goes away, and the person finds the goal. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavi hastini suni chaiva swapakecha panditaha samadarshinaha. So this type of absolutist way, it rises above these holiness or relativistic, socially oriented distinctions. When we are in society, we have to make distinctions between a holy person and an unholy person, a learned person and a non-learned person, a cultured person and a crude person, a pragrat person. But when a person has this absolutist vision, then he rises to a different plane. He becomes samadarshi. He begins to see equality in all beings. Vidya vinaya sampanne. This is the highest. Vidya, knowledge, learning. Vinaya, he has humility. Brahmane. So this is a brahmana or a well-learned person who has got learning and humility, gentleness, well-mannered. Or a gavi. Gavi means a cow. Or a hastini, an elephant. Shuni chaiva, or even a dog. And those who eat that dog. Such a vast range. Panditaha, the well-informed, they become samadarshini. So this absolutist way, a person rises above the socially oriented, he becomes freed from all forms of holiness or relativistic spirituality. Oh, should we do this? Should we not do this? Should we meet him? Should we not meet him? Should we bow down? Should we not bow down? Should we do namaste? Should we not do namaste? Shall we touch the feet? Not touch? So many rules come in the relativistic plane. When we look at people in social structure, protocol comes in, so many different ways of approaching. But when a person becomes samadarshi, when he begins to have this wisdom, he gets freed from all that. He rises above it. It does not matter whether you do namaste or don't do namaste. It doesn't matter whether you bow down or don't bow down, because that person has got now even-mindedness. He does not think you are better if you do this or you are worse if you do that. He has that even-mindedness. If you see the Puranas or the Itihasas, they are full of relativism. A certain group of people are always placed above and certain group of people are always placed down or condemned. But here in the Gita it's not like that. Gita teachings are to make everybody rise above such distinctions. This is another contribution of the Gita, that it does not preach any kind of relativism. Number 19, Ihai eva tair jitah sargo yesham samye sthitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te sthitaha. Even creative urges, sargah jitaha, are conquered by those whose minds are balanced in sameness, free from blemish and unitively balanced is indeed the Absolute. Therefore such persons become grounded in the Absolute. So the whole secret of yoga is this balance, always keeping a balanced attitude, never swaying too much to this side or that side, but remaining unitive and having a sense of sameness. And that is what will lead a person to his immortality, will lead a person to become grounded in Brahmi Sthiti. One of the many roles that the Gita teaches us is Brahmi Sthiti, becoming established firm in the Absolute. Na praharshayet priyam prapya, no dijet prapya cha priyam, sthira buddhir asammudho brahmavid brahmani sthitah. So these are the external characteristics of such a person. Na praharshayet priyam prapya. When the person gains something good, he does not get excited. Excitement is only a nervous agitation, getting very thrilled or happy. Priyam prapye, when some good fortune comes on him, good luck comes on him, then also he does not rejoice, he doesn't get excited. Chana udvijet. Udvijet means getting disturbed. Apriyam prapya. When some mishap should fall on him, some unfortunate thing should happen, then he should not get disturbed. Sthira buddhihi. So his buddhi, his reasoning becomes stable. Asammudha. He has no mudha. Mudha means a person who is mentally blind. He is getting delusions. He thinks wrong things. Asammudha. So he is free from all such thinking. Brahmavit. He becomes a knower of the Absolute. And he becomes Brahmi Sthiti, established in the Absolute. Bahyas parshastu ashaktatma vindati atmani yat sukham sa brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. The same joy which is felt by one in his own self when he is unattached to outer contacts such as touch, he whose self has established unity with the Absolute experiences never decreasingly. So this is an introversion. Our senses are going outward, mind is going outward, so that is getting introverted, turning inward, so that all the joy that he feels is coming from within himself, and that never decreases. Well, as the joys we experience from the senses, they come and go, and when they go, they leave behind a void, a vacuum, they leave behind longings, and they are never satisfactory. But here, the person is turning inward, so introversion. Unattached to outer contact. So whatever is coming from the senses, he lets them come and go. But he gets his unity with the Absolute that is within. So these transitory values cause suffering. If there is suffering in human life, it's because they have clinging to transitory things, things which come and go, and they are not able to detach themselves. This is in the next 22 verse. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyavantaha kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. Samsparsha means contact. When you touch something, it's called sparsha. Bhoga means enjoyments, pleasures. So that which brings pleasure on contact, whether it is contact with the eye or the skin or with the ear or with the tongue or with the nose, the moment that contact is bringing pleasure, that becomes the womb, the yoni for dukkha. It will bring pain later on. Because all these sense attractions are only agitation in the mind. It is nervous agitation. And when that nervous agitation dies down, it will create dukkha. Adyavantaha, having a beginning and an end. Adi and antaha. Kaunteya, O Arjuna. Buddha, that is why wise people, they turn away from it. They don't take pleasure in them. Na ramate teshu. Ramate means I enjoy. So na ramate teshu. So the Buddha, the wise people, they don't take pleasures in anything of the senses. Because they know that anything they take pleasure with the senses, that will cause later on pain. Verse 23. Shaknoti iha eva yah sodhum prag sharira vimokshanat kama krodha udbhavam vegam sa yukta. If that person is able to experience undisturbed the impulse arising out of desire and the impulse arising out of hatred. There are times when the urge will come, desire will come. There are times when the impulse of hatred will come up, kama will come up, krodha will come up. But if a person allows that impulse to come but does not get disturbed by it, then such a person will be definitely on the path of liberation. So this is the simple requirements for happiness, that is, not to get disturbed by the impulses of desire and hatred. So he who is able to experience sodhum, undisturbed here, prak sharira vimokshana. Prak means before, sharira means in this body, vimoksha means liberation. Before liberation from the body, that impulse, vegam, kama, krodha, udbhavam, that arises out of kama and krodha. Sa yukta, he is a yukta person, unified person. Sa sukhi naraha. Naraha means man. Sukhi is happy. Such is a happy man. So the secret of happiness is that a person is not carried away by desire or by hatred. These are the inner poisons which create unhappiness in people's lives. They are desires which will never be fulfilled. It's like a fire. They will never come when your desire is satisfied. And the other is hatred, which is burning up a person from within. Krodha, anger, dislike. If a person can get over so these urges, then he is bound to be a happy person. Number 24. Yo antah sukho antaramas tatha antarjyotirevayah sa yogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto atigacchati. Inner life of yogis. Now we say yoga, we talk so much of spiritual life. What is the quality of spiritual life? Spiritual life is always an inner life. It is of inner brilliance, of inner wisdom, of inner wakefulness. There are no outer signs immediately available. Until a person opens his mouth to speak or he behaves in a certain way, you cannot make out that a person has some spiritual qualities. When you see that person's behavior, you see the person's way of talking, dealing with situations, dealing with people, that will reveal that person's inner yogic discipline. He is happy, he is peaceful, he treats everybody with equanimity, he has no desires, he has no hates, no dislikes. These are inner qualities. The inner life of a yogi is both brilliant and blissful, wise and happy. So it is that life which is being recommended here, that life of inner wealth. You can have outer wealth, that does not matter. But if you are a yogi, you will have an inner happiness. Inward brilliance, inward happiness, whose inner life is free and easy. He can give a cool reply. And likewise of inward brilliance, he of unitive understanding, having become the Absolute, enters the self-effacement of the Absolute. So more a person enters into absolutist way of life, then his egoistic self, his small self, that begins to dissolve away. Labhante brahma nirvanam vishayah kshina kalmashaha Chinnadvaidha yatatmanah sarva bhuta hite rataha. Not only that, you become benevolent minded. You become altruistic. Seers, their evils weakened. Kshina kalmashaha. Cutting themselves away from conflicting pairs of interest. Chinnadvaidaha. Duality, conflict. This is the biggest problem of human beings, which causes much pain to human beings. When they are suffering from conflict, they can never be happy. Two interests working together. So that is resolved into having only one interest, one absolutist way. Yatatmanaha, self-control. Yati means a person who has self-control. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. For any kind of leadership or any kind of influence in this world, a person has to be self-disciplined, self-controlled. All the great leaders of the world, all the great people of the world have this quality, self-control. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. Also, they are kindly disposed to all beings, the welfare of all beings. They are thinking good for all. Sarva loka. Everybody in this world should be happy. Everybody should be taken care of. They have good thoughts for all. Labhante. So they attain Brahma Nirvanam, self-effacement in the Absolute. So these last few verses are describing the absolute state. What are the qualities of a person who comes to this Brahma realization? He's not a cold and aloof person, but he becomes a well-wisher, a seer, a wise person, and a person who is freed from all kinds of conflict. Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate vidhitatmanam. Kama krodha viyuktatmanam. So yukta means to join, viyukta means to disjoin. So they have disjoined themselves from kama and krodha. Wherever there is kama and wherever there was krodha, they have disconnected themselves. Yatinam, those self-controlled ones. So there are very sober teachings. The yogis are sober people. They are people of balance and self-control. Yata chetasam, whose vital consciousness is subdued. And vidita atmanam, knowers of the self. Their knowledge is knowledge of the self. Brahma nirvanam, self-effacement in the absolute. Vartate abhitaha, lies near at hand. So those who are disjoined from desire and anger, those self-controlled ones, whose self-consciousness is subdued, who are also knowers of the self, self-effacement in the absolute lies near at hand. 27. Sparshan kritva bahir bahyam chakshushchaiva antare bhruvoho pranapanau samau kritva nasabhyantara charinam. So this is now preparing to go into the next chapter, which is the chapter on meditation, dhyana. So this verse and the next verse describes the yogis who have brought their prana to the middle of the eyebrows, Ajna Chakra. So having peripherally discarded outward factors such as touch, and also with eyes fixed between the eyebrows, equalizing the prana and the apana, vital tendencies moving within the nasal orifices, Yatendriya mano buddhir munir mokshaya parayanaha vigate chabhya krodho yaha sada mukto eva saha. So detachment is brought to its culminating point to lead to the next chapter. So here we are talking of detachment. So he's detached himself from his senses, and detached himself from anger, kama, krodha, which are all part of the rajagunas. And now he is focusing his mind by bringing his concentration to the center of his eyebrows and harmonizing his pranas and keeping the senses and the mind and the reason controlled. He is a silent recluse, a muni. And he's got only one idea now, and that idea is liberation, mukti. And all the desire and fear, bhaya, raga, dvesha, ichha, krodha, all these are gone from him forever. He needs nothing now because he has got satisfaction in the self. Number 29. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam nyatva mam shantim richati. And what does his understanding say? He knows that the Lord, God, is the enjoyer of all ritual sacrifices. He is the acceptor of all austerities. So this yajna that person performs and the tapasya that performs, who is the acceptor of that? It is the Lord. Who is the enjoyer? It is the Lord. And moreover, he is the Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He is the Lord of all worlds. And Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam, the friend of all beings. Nyatva Mam Shantim Richati. When one knows this, then he reaches peace. So all ways in which Absolute is understood in the context of sacrifice, discipline, theology, and kind bounty are brought together as conducive to peace before Gita becomes more fully philosophical. So from this chapter onwards we enter into a new section where the teachings become more philosophical. Before this we were dealing with Karma Yoga, unitive way of action, unitive way of wisdom, Jnana Yoga, and in this chapter Karma, action, and Sannyasa, renunciation, the two most fundamental principles, one of action and the other of renunciation, they are treated unitively as a yoga. And this change of attitude and change of discipline through sacrifice, yajna, tapasya, and even great Lord of the world, that is theology now. And friend of all beings, that is kind bounty, without any reservation. This attitude, when it comes into the yogi's life, he gets final peace. So the 5th chapter comes to an end, called Karma Sannyasa Yoga.